Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, along with Bryan Fulford and BJ Jones. Gonna give you your updates of your weekend and who's on the ledge. Charles, who's on the ledge?
Well, I don't know. I was trying to figure out whether I want to put a school on the ledge or not, and I think things are still out there in front of them, but BJ, damn.
What you talking about, BJ?
I mean, that's at home. That's at home off a bye week. I don't know what to do with that. That's a tough one. I'm trying to figure out whether the Southern fan base needs to be on the ledge or not. I don't know.
I'll tell you this, Chuck. Is that our fan base has been on the ledge since December. You didn't get an opportunity to go to the game where we played y'all, did you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did that look like a Southern fan base?
Nah.
Our fan base is a shell of itself because our fan base is frustrated with some of the moves that have been made from an administrative standpoint. So a lot of our fan base, what happened last night, it didn't jolt them in the least bit. Like it didn't jolt them at all because their expectations are so tempered. And we had a coach that came in that had to win over a fan base, and so far he's failed to do so. Southern's going through one of those periods. I've been accepted it. It kind of is what it is.
I've been there.
So that's kind of where we are. It's kind of atypical season for Southern.
I've been there. 2015 through 2020. I was there, so I feel you.
Yeah, you got folks in the Prairie View gang. They
might just freeze up as he was starting to.
Yes.
I was going to add that there's some frustrated Prairie View fans out there. And I agree with you, B.J. Jones. When I noticed Southern coming down there, it wasn't the same impact of the fan base. Even if it was, relatively similar, the pride in terms of the arrogance that some people see them with them, I would say it was just their expectation certainly wasn't measured the same. Mike, what were you finishing up saying?
I was saying that, man, they are very frustrated. Very frustrated.
Yeah, and it was a weird game.
2 times.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, 2 times SWAC West game, and the expectations were a little bit higher, but now you see the way we started out. I think they saved a little bit with a Grambling win, but you got some folks that are calling for quite a bit, and in terms of quite a few changes in Prairie View, and there's a lot of frustration factors very high at PV. So sorry if I'm going in and out. So
yeah, you made it through that one. And yesterday game was an indication that you have number 15, 16 Incarnate Word. Talent-wise, you played with them pretty early. You get to within 5 points, and you have there's a follow-up drive, and you get them on a 3rd and 10. They get you on all sides to make it 3rd and 5 on a penalty. And they go deep. And questionable call, but you've been playing penalty all day long and all season long. That's what the expectation for folks. So you're not gonna get those close calls. You get interference that sets out first and down, and they go and score, and they kind of pull away after that. So that's what you see, yo-yo, up and down penalties. You see the talent that is there, and they kind of establish it for a minute. You see some concerns, obviously, with the backup play. But I don't know. But I'm here representing Texas Southern today from homecoming. So I'm going to get out of all this sad woe. And I know you got a Norfolk State Spartans fan that they ready to push somebody off the ledge, Bryan Fulford. I know that's your family. Mom, rest in peace. And your dad has those stories to tell as they talked about you. And you kind of poke a fun at them sometimes and show them love. But right now, even while the Southern fans probably would be happy with Coach of what he did at that time, of what they're seeing now. But other than that, they probably don't understand why he didn't bring that with them. With that being said, let's get into it. Welcome to episode 559 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NEIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KSOH 1230 AM studios as they do The Giant with Ralph Cooper, beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. I was bringing Charles around as we got a chance to kind of live up to the life. I still have my VIP. I cut off in the morning as we went to the president's suite, and it was open as they had the parade. And I was telling Charles, this is such a city homecoming when you compare it to Prairie View. Unique in its own way.
Yeah.
Talk about all HBCUs where you see similar parts of the culture, but as we've been amongst it, we also understand the unique part of what separates each institution individually, but still brings us together as one. I want to say this before we get in these scores. While Charles and Bryan are able to kind of smile, I'm intrigued to see, what their thoughts in terms of A&M coming back. Obviously, Jackson State finished off the game, being able to run out 2 minutes, what I think is a significant statement. But to be beaten up on a team that bad at halftime, obviously this is a 60-minute game. But I wonder if that kind of concerns you. And then same with Bryan. You playing a team for their homecoming. Yeah, they're mostly up. But you're playing a fourth, fifth string quarterback. And while the game got away, if you were able to watch that game, you saw that Alabama State had some chances. And I would think there would maybe be some concerns with you, Bryan, in terms of the defense a little bit there. And same with Charles. So while you get to celebrate the three and never apologize for a win, but are there some things that still kind of lingering? Have you saying, I don't know, Bryan?
Well, look, I'm first off, in all transparency, I didn't get to watch all of it because I was broadcasting doing a game. So
congratulations on that. Same with Charles. Both of y'all stepping up and leaving the boys out here on the side as y'all do y'all thing. I see you dropping the mic a little bit.
Trying to get like Charles. I'm trying to get like Charles. But I will say this. What's the concerning part is the amount of turnovers for FAMU. And FAMU is winning ball games in spite of themselves, making a lot of right now I don't even know what the plus minus is, but on the turnover scale, but it's very much skewed to the minus. How long is that sustainable? I don't know. Granted, we had the better quarterback on Saturday, and at the end of the day, that made the difference, I think. And Alabama State's defense is probably what kept them around. And I'm just happy that we covered expectation, And so at the end of the day, no one will think about it and remember the how. We're just going to look at the final results. And it was 2 touchdowns. And on the bye. I'm not even 2 weeks ahead yet. On to the bye, Charles. On to the bye. I'm not even there yet. On to the bye.
I like it. Charles, what were your thoughts? I know you had to go back and kind of review it.
Yeah.
That game versus seeing and watching it live, but everybody was like, wow, and getting on Maynard in terms of how Jackson State just jumped out there and really thumped them early. Mm-hmm. But then you go back and start reading and the plays, and you're like, ooh, second half.
Yeah. That is a concern because this team does have sort of a Jekyll and Hyde personality. I mean, they can look the part at times, and then inexplicably it just goes somewhere. And that's just one of those questions I have to ask, Coach Taylor, in terms of what happens. I mean, we've seen it where, teams get up on teams and then all of a sudden they take their foot off the gas. And anytime something becomes consistent, because we saw it at Texas Southern and we saw it again yesterday, I never begrudge a win, but at the same time, you kind of like, okay, all right, now FAMU is going to be coming in a couple of weeks, and it's always rough when you go play Alabama State, and you especially take a look at it in regards to distraction games, homecoming. It happened last year with Alabama State, so that's something that you just kind of you keep an eye on because that's something that it sort of raises an eyebrow.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, let's get some of these scores of the week and tell you what's taking place. If you go into the MEAC while we're all focused on the SWAC and our individual institutions that we keep a little extra eye on, something seems to be happening special in North Carolina, and I'm talking about the North Carolina school that with the Eagles. If you look at the last 3 weeks in terms of what they've done, scoring and defensive, they've made some major statements. Quietly, South Carolina State in their non-conference games have gotten some big wins, and they added another one. This is the Tennessee Tech team that beat Tennessee State, which is certainly at least solid. They got a big win in their conference play when you look at the independents. Hampton, though, they left one on the field in a lot of people's eyes, which is kind of like the Hampton you see, up and down. Certainly does well non-conference against HBCUs. But then when they get into conference play, they can look really solid in some competition. And then when it comes to close out things, they just can't seem to make it happen. Interesting.
Did you see the end of that game, Doc?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So, Doc, I got to ask a question. I got to ask a question this morning as an athletic director because we see some programs in terms of the health of the program to get these out-of-conference wins. Or they get wins that aren't specific to MEAC. But I guess the question is how do you sort of evaluate your team, especially if you're losing out of conference games in your recruiting footprint, but you still have your goals out in front of you. I mean, how do you sort of evaluate the health of the program?
I think that's really challenging at this time. Because you're measuring expectations from the past. And so it changes from program to program. Let me be frank. When you got programs like FAMU, Jackson State, Southern, maybe Alcorn a little bit in there, maybe a little bit North Carolina A&T and a couple of other programs. They're going to have different measuring blocks versus, a Prairie View, maybe a Alabama A&M, North Carolina Central type of programs where they've kind of started winning as of late, but they've been right on the edge in terms of their consistency, which is going to be totally different when you look at programs such as Pine Bluff, Valley, Delaware State. Delaware State is a weird enigma. They're 1-5, but I would argue that they played some of the best.
Good 1-5, yeah.
Yeah, that's out there, and you are intrigued if they can turn the corner in conference play, where you would think that the cultural nuances of conference play may put them in a better position, or maybe it is just them that they can play you close, but they just can't. They hadn't learned how to win. You don't know what it is yet. There's so much emphasis on conference play. Who really emphasizes non-conference play?
Yeah.
And then you have the different alignment of conference play. You have teams like Alcorn and Prairie View in the SWAC that have played full FCS schedules. You have those several teams in the MEAC, not all of them, that play basically full FCS schedules, and then their full FCS schedules with maybe an FBS game in there from both perspectives. You talk about they're playing 2 extra FCS games. So their margin in terms of what they can do is measured out of 4 games, while you look in the SWAC, if you're playing a full FCS, FBS schedule, you're talking about 2 games. What does that look like? What is the regional options in terms of the football in your area that you recruit against? What does that mean? So it's really a challenge to answer that overall versus going to each program. You really need to look at each program specifically and try to measure what are those expectations at a given time. Are the schools a football school? Texas Southern, Alabama A&M, Norfolk State. They have a Central is one of the enigmas out there, but they were in that for a while, where in a lot of ways the emphasis was in terms of the history of what they do in football. I mean, what they do in basketball.
Basketball, yeah.
Not necessarily football, which is another component you got to kind of ride. Where is the level of the AD VP of athletics? Are they new to HBCU sports? Are they new to the program? Do they have a long-standing history? Do they understand the nuances? What pushback are they getting from their president or chancellor? What are the components of the alumni? So in a lot of ways, that's really unique when you talk about what that looks like. And again, I think you have to go program to program. Alabama State, Alabama A&M, where they have unique regional rivals of late, some of the latter teams outside of FAMU, Bethune-Cookman to join the conference, where they have historic matchups against D2 programs that are aligned with previous conference they were members of. Obviously, Alabama State goes back a little further in terms of joining the SWAC in 82, and then Alabama A&M in 98, but they still have connections with rabid fan bases of SCS programs. When you talk about Miles College and Tuskegee, one of them is one of the most historical matchups out there when you talk about the Turkey Day. That's unique. You can't really stop playing those games, but how much does that help you, hurt you? Where does it bring to you in terms of on the field in regards to the expectation as the FCS D2? You're supposed to win those games in a lot of ways pretty heavily, but you know the uniqueness between Tuskegee and Alabama State. Right. You also know the uniqueness between Alabama A&M playing both those teams where they pretty much dominated. But how do you measure that you're supposed to win those games? Do you win them by enough? That's weird in terms of those. That's Norfolk State and Virginia State. How that matches up there. You know,
Hampton, Virginia,
A&T and Central versus Winston-Salem State. Those are games that not have played as much, but the fans want that game. Where does it really help you? You saw A&T. Fans were going, you talking about jumping off a ledge. They would have lost that game. And we now see that Winston-Salem State is pretty solid. A&T is not there, but still, people don't get in the nuances as we do in regards to D2 FCS, one playing okay. All they see is like, yeah, this is a rival. We need to win this game. And for those that do understand a different division, we don't want this. They don't understand the stuff when you talk about Prairie View and where the FCS programs, historically white colleges in Texas. The differential between the Incarnate Word and a Lamar, Texas Commerce that's moving up. People don't understand their units, and they just say, hey, they FCS programs, we supposed to beat them. Well, are you financing the same way? Sure. What are they in terms of their team? Texas Commerce has a goal to move to the FBS level.
Yep.
How are they doing that? We're not. And there's economic platforms that are involved in that in the city. So there are a lot, essentially what I'm talking about, there are a lot of different pain points that you really need to look at before you can go down that rabbit hole.
Sure.
Far extended our first. We're going to take the break, come back on the other side, give you the updates actually of scores, and then we'll release the poll rankings later in the show in terms of the major division. Let's take our first break, come out the other side. Thank you, Charles, for that business question, and get into some more actual football talk now that we have some updates and scores.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him.
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up message quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
This is Bryan Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Lab. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Lab, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. As I was showing you all, kind of mentioned, going to give love Texas Southern University and homecoming. This is Collegiate Luxury Goods as they continue to show out from the clothing line. They were there and I got me some apparel. I like the way they put in work. I need to see about partnering with them. With that being said, let's get into the mid-majors. Johnson C. Smith seems to continue to do what they do, but we do have an upset, as they would say, upset alert at the top of the conference. But with that being said, let's get into those that were receiving votes and see what they did. Livingston Blue Bears improved to 4-2, 2-1 on the season as they defeat the Elizabeth City State Vikings 23-17. Quietly, the Blue Bears have made some moves and are winning some football games. Albany State Golden Rams, we talked about last week. Here they come. They improved to 3-2, 3-0 in conference play quietly. Defeat the Allen Yellow Jackets 57-17. Was not a quiet score there as they continue to win and move on. Guess who's else is back after starting out 0-2? You got the Miles Golden Bears. They are now 3-2, 3-0 in the SIAC as they defeat Central State Marauders, I should say, as they are 16-7. Pretty close matchup, but they got the win, and that's what counts this time of the year, as we talked about earlier. Let's get into the mystical top 7. Virginia State Trojans lost to the number 1 Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls at home. Trojans have played some close games, but they haven't been able to win them, particularly when you look at it at home. Dr. Henry Frazier III, that came in with the high expectations, has fallen to 21-17 in terms of score there. To a number 1 team that is showing that they are for real. If you don't get it by now, I just don't understand what you're watching. They fall in terms of Trojans, fall to 2-3. They're 1-1 in conference play. You have number 6 Shaw Bears defeat Bluefield State Big Blue 35-17. Quietly, the Shaw Bears are showing that they're going to be least in the mix and at 4-2 and 2-1. They continue to move and get it done. Virginia Union Panthers They said you tried to put the dirt on us a little too early. When they get the magic of that loss not counting in the conference standing. So they defeat number 3 Winston-Salem State, the Rams, 31-13. Again, a top 7 matchup, and they get the best of them on at home. They improve on the season, 2-2, 2-0 in terms of conference play, big win in terms of what they were able to do. Quietly, the independent West Virginia State Yellow Jackets defeat the Fairmont State Fighting Falcons 45-34. Look out now. They improved to 3-1, 2-0 in the conference race as the Yellow Jackets make a huge statement. Winston-Salem State were at number 3, and I told you they fell to number 5. Virginia Union, again, that score was 31-13. They fall to 4-2, 2-1 in the conference race. Clark Atlanta Panthers, they've been playing with the food a little bit, but finding ways to get it done this time not to be. Oddly enough, it was at home where those rat traps get out there a little bit funny. 35-28 as they could not come from behind to get it done. They trailed for most of the game. They are 4-1 and more importantly, fall to 3-1 in conference play, as we'll see how they rebound once they had a little bit of their adversity. And oddly enough, the coach least understood it and tried to get the players to understand, as you heard following him. He talked about that they're no longer the hunter. They are the hunted, and they needed to respond accordingly, and they were not able to do it. Number 1, Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls, however, they defeat number 7 Virginia State Trojan, the top 7 matchup, 21-17. They are 6-0, 3-0 on what many people obviously would consider is a magical city. It's almost hard to say. They're at 5 consecutive weeks to see what that looks like in their play, where they have been at the number 1 ranking. And you would imagine that even this week on Tuesday, without a loss, they would stay there. Let's get into the top 7 of the major division programs, if you would. Give you those teams sitting outside. Southern Jaguars. So we open up. They took a non-conference loss, but it was pretty big, 22-3. They're still 1-0, though, in conference play. They lost to Nichols. The Cardinals there, 51-7. Scored late. It was 51-0 for much of the game, which, as B.J. Jones talked about, they understand what's going on there. Alabama State Hornets are down to the 4th, 5th string quarterback, and their offensive plays like it. Did much, got some big running plays. Defense tried to help, but couldn't quite even turn those over. And then special teams.
Yeah, they didn't get no help from the special teams.
As well.
I mean, none.
None whatsoever. Like,
they fall to 2-3, 1-1. They lost to FAMU, and FAMU rallies are smiling and saying, hey, it is what it is. Alabama A&M Bulldogs. I won't hear all that, Browns. I won't hear all that. Bulldogs, they fall 2-3, 0-1. We were able to run off Alabama A&M Bulldogs, but they did fight back. But Jackson State makes a statement to me when you get that chance to say, hey, you're losing a lot of momentum. We need to get a first down. And they had a third down they had to convert. Big second down throw for 8 yards that set them up on that 3rd down and 2. Got 3 or 4 yards on the 3rd down, first down, and then a big first down run for 20 yards allows them just to kneel out the game, the favorite play when you're talking about winning a close game. They did lose to Jackson State 45-38. Getting the top 7, South Carolina State Bulldogs defeat Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles in the last parts of that game, 22-20. Big plays, and South Carolina State Bulldogs are feeling pretty good in terms of winning some of these non-conference games, which they hadn't done in the last couple of years. We'll see what that means in conference play, but they improved to 3-2.
Look out, Miat.
Talking down there.
Yeah.
Look out, Miat.
Yeah, and there was a lot of teams they were looking for coaches in the offseason that put their hat for Chennis Berry. I know a lot of those fans are wandering eyes over there and thinking about what could have been.
That's a sore subject in Baton Rouge. That's a sore subject. That's a sore subject.
I'm talking about that. That's an old girl. That's an old girlfriend that got away. I should have did it a little better.
Still bad. Oh,
I'm talking about. Hey, Doc. Every time they win, it makes it worse because that's the first thing Man, I knew South Carolina State won yesterday, and I was in Montgomery because all of the Southern alumni group chats were going, you see what he doing? You see? It's so such a dog.
Oh gosh.
Travis State Tigers did not play. As we talk about sore subjects, they're 3-2-1, still dealing with the 5 overtime loss where they felt they controlled things and then look up. Guess who they play next week? And we'll get a little more into that at the end of the show. They play their big time rival, multi-rivals that they have in that area, Alcorn State Braves, which is a Western Division game. Then you have Tennessee State Tigers defeat Lindenwood Lions 24-20. They were down 20-7 in that matchup. And credit to Tennessee State Tigers, they rolled back. Even though it's teams that many people they should be beating up. Again, win games. You see if you can fix things. It seems to be a better position to be able to fix things when you're winning versus not. They improved to 4-2 and more importantly, 2-1 in the OVC Big South Partnership. Now you have up to number 4. Jackson State Tigers defeated Alabama A&M Bulldogs 45-38. And the Jackson State fans after I love are saying, hey, man, we're 4-2 and 2-0. Y'all can talk all that you want. We good. Y'all deal with the problems over there. We ain't got that in our life. After Rams lost to Rhode Island Rams.
You got the top question of the day. Was all the Bulldog fans is Maynard going to be back next year? They was like, there were polls going around. So anyway, let's need to hear
the first half of that game. You for sure. Second half, they be like, yeah, here we go again. Now
here we go. They were like, where's the defense?
46-44, 2 overtimes. Hampton Pirates bit to bit. It looked like they were going to get an impressive conference win to continue to show that they are the real deal in terms of football. And then they just find a way to let it slide out their hand. They had one first place vote going into this weekend game, so it'll be interesting to see how that will play with the voters as they move forward. At number 2, Florida A&M Rattlers, the Alabama State Hornets, 28-13, 3-2, 1-0. People have forgotten in a lot of ways with all the changes and some of these games that maybe they're not beating up people like they used to, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. They still are the reigning champions, and they are at the top of the polls, and they just find ways to win. At number 1, and that win against South Carolina State seems more impressive by the weeks as they roll by. At number 1, North Carolina Central Eagles. I think there's no question about them being 1. Imagine they're going to stay there. They might even collect some more first-place votes. They defeated Campbell 45-14. It's a Campbell that has a win over HBCU, but they beat them up significantly, 45-14. And right now, the Eagles are rolling. And the question that you have for a lot of folks is have they peaked? It seems like they just getting better.
Yeah.
Play. Yeah. Obviously, they got the win on their belt in conference play, but you got to win them almost all, as you hear Coach always talk about, because he lost a key one last year. They kept him out. 2 years ago, they lost one, but it wasn't enough to keep him out of the championship game where they got it done against Jackson State. With that being said, that is the top 7. Because we pushed along in that segment and y'all kind of talked through that, let's get into our next break. We'll come back on the other side and talk about the poll rankings as we release those and really get your thoughts on that versus some of the games that talked about last week. We'll see in the last second a little bit of a mix between some of the key games you thought in the poll rankings as well as key games coming up in the last second. With that being said, we'll take a second break and come back and unveil the major division poll rankings for this week and see what you think. Stay with me right back after this second break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Standard protection that's never not working. Head and Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Hey, grab me one too.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember. They can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft. Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody. Sorry.
Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more. But it's so absorbent, you can use less. So it's always worth it.
Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna love and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Let's jump into it, gentlemen. The top 7 poll rankings. See your thoughts on this as we get it going. Receiving votes this week, Alcorn State Braves, after falling early in the non-conference play, are back at it, doing what they're supposed to do. When you have Alcorn State Braves, they fall. I mean, they were receiving votes as they're 3-3, 2-0, and with 141 points. Hampton Pirates, as they fall out of the poll rankings, they are in it at number 3, 3-3, 0-2, 135 points. Grambling State Tigers are 3-3, 0-1 as they did not play, but are in the mix, and that should be Howard Bison, I saying 2-3, 0-0 as they did not play this week. Falling out were the Hampton Pirates as they dropped out 3-3, 0-2 on the season in terms of conference play. Let's get into the top 7. In the top 7, one team jumps in, Morgan State Bears. They took care of the Lincoln, Pennsylvania Lions, Division II out of the CIAA. They improved to 3-0 as they keep moving forward. Getting a little bit of offense. Can they get the offensive going? We'll see when it comes to conference play to make that move. 155 points there. At number 6, South Carolina State Bulldogs improved to 3-2 on this season. 168 points. They move up a spot, and we heard a little bit about how they feel about that around the country, particularly on the Bluff, I guess they would say. At number 5, PJ Jones shared with us. At number 5, you have Grambling State Tigers sitting at 3-2, 0-1. They move up a spot, although they didn't play based on a team that lost ahead of them. At number 4, Tennessee State Tigers, 4-2, 2-1, 188 points. Move up a spot to number 4 from the 5th spot last weekend. They continue to move. You see that as the lone independent that's making some moves as Hampton drops out. Intriguing as this is the first year in a while where you had 2 independents that were in the mix this late in the season in regards to the top 7. With that being said, number 3, Jackson State Tigers. They move up one spot themselves as they get a big conference win. They improve to 4-2 overall, 2-0 in conference play, 191 points. Then you get to number 2. Florida A&M Rattlers improved to 3-2, 1-0 in terms of conference play, 3 first place votes, 218 points as they get it done. Those are 3 consistent first place votes, I should say. And number 1, North Carolina Central. They improved to 4-2, big non-conference win. Big numbers they're putting up on offense, stingy on defense. 1-0 in conference play as they had that matchup against Norfolk State a couple of weeks ago in the Circuit City Classic. They gain a first place vote. They move up to 8 of them, 24 points. North Carolina Central remains in the number 1 spot for the 2nd consecutive week. Week number 6 is in the books. That being said, let me go to BJ Jones. What are your thoughts in terms of the top 7 as you look at the programs here?
Looks about right. I would honestly, Doc, just me, I would flip South Carolina State and Grambling.
Okay.
But other than that, man, it looks spot on. North Carolina Central. We've talked about them and kind of how they look, and this is one I want people to look at when it comes down to North Carolina Central. This was supposed to be a rebuilding year for them.
Right.
They lost a lot in the secondary and on the offensive line, breaking in a new quarterback, Darius Leonard. Darius can't remember his name. But Walker Harris, a new quarterback there. And now this team, that secondary is full of sophomores and redshirt freshmen. They have 1 starting linebacker that's a senior. They got 2 seniors on the defensive line. This is a young football team. This is a very young football team, and the way that they're doing it, and they've gelled. Kudos to head coach Trey Oliver and that staff up there with the job that they've done. And I want to give another kudos. Jackson State. Jackson State lost a game at Grambling, and they didn't pack it in. Jackson State has looked solid. I know people are going to look at that second half against Alabama A&M, but when it mattered the most, Jackson State was able to come through. And the young man at quarterback, Morgan, people talked about him being a running quarterback. I tell you what, when he needs to make the pass, he's been able to make it, make the throws these last couple of weeks. So shout out also to TC Taylor and that staff at Jackson State.
Good stuff. Great points you made there. Let me go to you, Charles. What are your thoughts in terms of top 7?
Probably for me, I think that South Carolina State win is impressive. So I probably, like BJ, I would have bumped them up in front of Grambling. And what threw me off with South Carolina State, I had to look at it again. 412 yards passing yesterday. I mean, Eric Phoenix going nuts in the air, and those receivers with some gaudy, receiving statistics. So that's gonna. Well, that's going to be fun when MEAC starts to get together because, as we mentioned earlier, Delaware State has probably got to be one of the better 1-5 teams that I've come across. So I can't wait for conference play in the MEAC. A big win yesterday, I think Florida A&M going into Montgomery and getting the win. That was impressive. North Carolina Central on the road, 45-14, 28-point outburst in the second quarter, superbly impressive. So, I have to give it to them in regards to that. And Jackson State being able to get the win. And Jacobian Morgan, I think my big thing with him was consistency. And we're starting to see over the past couple of weeks where he has gotten a little bit more consistent, and that could bode well for Jackson State going down the stretch. And shout out to Jackson State's fan base. Great representation again in Mobile yesterday. That's 2 weeks in a row. Houston, then Mobile. That's impressive for that fan base to sort of get in behind that team the way they have. And, I got a text last night. I just want TC to win so bad. Well, people are getting out and they're supporting the football team. So that's impressive to go out and see.
Great points when you talk about the breakdown there and mix in some of the matchups and scores on why you see the top 7 the way it is. With that being said, Big Mike, get your thoughts on the top 7 major divisions.
I think it looks good, Doc. I think the one in agreement, I think you could make an argument for South Carolina State, not only bypassing Grambling, but even Tennessee State. And here's why I say that. Tennessee State and South Carolina have a common opponent, Tennessee Tech. I believe Tennessee State lost to them, and here you have South Carolina with an impressive win against Tennessee Tech, a number 1, number 2 slot in the OBC. So common opponent, and you look at how they compare yardage against that team versus allowed points. You can make an argument, a good argument, that South Carolina State goes not only above Grambling, but above Tennessee State, or even with them, however you want to do it. But other than that, the poll looks good. Now North Carolina Central, I can't say enough about them. I didn't think in this year when they were retooling, rebuilding, they just found guns in the chamber. I didn't know they had that many freshmen, sophomores starting. But if you look at it, they're still, compared to last year, they're 36, 37 points per game, allowing their opponents 23, 24. They really didn't seem to miss a beat, coming off previous historical years. Jackson State is doing well. I think they should have been there. To me, I may be on the outlier. To me, that was a disappointing win. Here's why. Jackson State, if you look at that game in particular and other games, they have this button on, button off mentality. We can flip the button on and flip the button off. If you look at that first quarter, their efficiency was tremendous. Third down conversions, I think they were 5 for 9. You look at the second half for Jackson State, it was like 1 in a million. So you're like, what happened? Did they take the foot off the pedal? Did they start calling out band members in the stands to come play, or what, just to take a break? So I think they did well for the schedule they played. But come on, Jackson State, you're gonna play a tougher schedule later this year. So those are my
Good stuff. Mike, with the challenges and making a statement and analysis. Some people say a win is good. For Mike, he said, hey, man, I'm looking deep at it. You got bigger plans in terms of where you want to go. Take a second look. Great points made, Big Mike. Bryan, what are your thoughts in terms of top 7? I saved you for last on purpose since you have all that Rattler orange and green back there.
Well, first off, I told you, I felt, I don't know whether I said it last week here or somewhere else, but I was waiting on North Carolina Central to sort of redeem themselves from losing at home to Elon. They did. They went on the road. They whooped up on Campbell, a Campbell team that struggled against our the best 1-4, 1-5 HBCU football team in Delaware State. That was a game that probably Delaware State should have won at Campbell. So I'm impressed. I've seen Central up close, and the four wins, they look really, really good. I mean, so hey, look, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid right now. I give them their props. I do think they will. It'll be interesting what happens when they get into conference play, because I think they're gonna be in a battle. I agree with Mike also regarding South Carolina State. I have them, the top 3 I have in my top 10, same top 3 you have, Doc. I have South Carolina State 4. Also on the merits of what Mike said, South Carolina State beat a Tennessee Tech team that TSU did not. And so I think they were both games at Tennessee Tech. So Tennessee State and South Carolina State both went to Tennessee Tech. South Carolina State got the win.
Yep.
Yeah. So props to both Tennessee State and South Carolina State. Underdogs going on the road, getting wins. That was big. Yeah. Thank you, Eddie George, and thank you, Chinnis Berry. My pocket says thank you. Because otherwise, it was a brutal day in college football. So I thank those 2 programs for coming through for me. But outside of that, I think there's a clear separation of tiers. I think those are the 5 top teams in HBCU football, and everybody else, we're just throwing darts at the wall. I really do. I feel like there's 5 teams and that are kind of moving apart, and then there's everyone else. But hey, this is October. We'll see what happens.
I love that your point you're making there. And I want to ask a little bit of a follow-up question from everybody to see, do you agree in terms of it being a top 5 separation, or do you see it as 4 or 3 teams? I'm going to go to you, BJ Jones. What is your separation point as we get near the midpoint, what we would call semester grades are due? Do you agree that there's a separation in terms of 5, or do you see it as a smaller subset?
I think it's about a group of 5, 4 to 5. I think everything after that, like Brian said, we're just throwing darts. But this is the most. October is where you see contenders and pretenders separate from each other.
Bingo.
If you want to make November mean something, we're going to see it in October. So we got a lot of big games coming up. There's a lot of big games that are circled on my calendar. Well, I'm like, I might want to get to that one.
And we're
looking forward to it.
I agree, and we're going to start a little bit of that next weekend when you have some big matchups, divisional play. In fact, you have in the Western Division, everybody has a divisional matchup amongst the 6 teams, 3 big games starting on Friday next week. We'll see what that means. Mike, BJ Jones talked about throwing darts. Is that homecoming darts or is that just the tailgate darts?
No. That's a separate apples and oranges discussion. We talking about football here. So we talking about homecoming and tailgate. It's a little different story. But I do agree. I do agree with BJ, and I do agree with Brian. And it's top 5 right now here in the year our Lord October. I think you get 2-3 weeks into the schedule, then you can talk about tier 3. You can bring up that cute little bus that you do at the end of the year. Who's driving the bus? Dr. Cavil's, who's driving the bus? So I think you can start talking about that in November and you'll have 3. But right now, I agree that it's 5. Everybody else, we'll see where the wheat and the chaff, get separated with the next 2 or 3 weeks where you get into some hardcore conference play. I think you'll see the separation.
You hear this man talking about my bus. It's not a bus. It's a traveling truck.
It looks like a bus.
It's a cute little bus, man. It's a traveling truck. That's the truck that the teams pack their equipment on, man.
The equipment truck,
Man, that thing look like. I'm sorry. I'm glad you told me because I've been referring to that thing as a little bus.
I'm surprised he didn't call it the little yellow short bus.
Right.
I'm like, man.
You get much worse than that, man. It's political season. You got to be politically correct. Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of the top 5, 4, 5? I think is the consensus. Are you going in a different direction?
I think we still have room for growth. I mean, I'm willing to allow 4 or 5 as of today. And like everybody said, I think things will start separating themselves out over the next couple of weeks, especially after October 19th. For whatever reason, I have that date kind of circled as that line of demarcation to see what starts to happen after that week. It always seems like that 3rd Saturday in October where things start to fall in place. So I think that's probably what you're going to see happen. And I think we're in for some fun times, especially in November, because I can't tell you heads or tails in the SWAC West. I don't know what's going to happen over there. So,
SWAC West comes down to the end of the season. Keep on.
Just keep your eyes focused on that.
Just keep watching, and we'll figure it out sometime, maybe during the Bayou class.
Indeed.
With that being said, before we take this last break, I did want to give you the schedule of the top 2 teams. What's left? Are they going to be on a collision course, or do some other teams have some ideas of how they want to crash this early party that we are doing in the poll rankings? Specifically, Dr. Fields, I won't blame it on y'all. You all said top 4 or 5. Even Charles wanted to expand it a little more. With that being said, North Carolina Central will host Virginia Lynchburg. As Lynchburg felt a little pretty good about themselves, even in a loss, leaving out of Houston, Texas, putting up a touchdown and field goal and holding Texas Southern offense to nominal numbers, if you would. I don't know if that's more of an indictment on Texas Southern or just that Virginia Lynchburg says, hey, we came to play some football. Yeah, Morgan State at North Carolina Central to open things up in the traditional play. Obviously, as we said, North Carolina Central has a win on their belt. That game is in North Carolina. Then this is the one that really has you interested in probably my favorite weekend of this upcoming season, you have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday games amongst the MEAC and the SWAC. It starts off in the MEAC on a Thursday night affair with North Carolina Central at South Carolina State.
Oh,
you got a Friday game in that week in the SWAC, and then you have all these great matchups on Saturday. That is a weekend where I'm just going to have so much fun. I can get my FCS HBCU football fix starting as early as Thursday, and I don't miss a beat and get to see it on Friday, and then we normally get our Saturday rotation. Then you have Howard, North Carolina Central. These two teams have fought for it the last couple of years, putting up 50 spots, trading spots at home, and so some people have this as a calendar spot. We'll see if it means something by November the 15th, and to shut things down is that pesky Delaware State Hornets. North Carolina Central goes on the road on November the 23rd. Number 2 ranked team. The Saturday that you're looking for is 2 weeks away. Bryan kind of teased it out. He was smart. He didn't say anything. He's looking at the break. Is you have on the 19th, right? You have FAMU at Jackson State. That may be for the division. It has been for the last couple of years.
Yes.
Game of the year.
Started off
Game of the
on
year.
Labor Day weekend in
Game of the year.
September. Now, a lot of folks wanted this game moved the latter part of the year, not November, but it is moved into October. Pretenders and surrenders. We'll see what that means. And then you have the old rivalry with Southern and FAMU that used to be inter-conference, and now it's a conference matchup, not divisions, but it does count in the standings. Southern and FAMU. It's in Tallahassee. Some legendary matchups between those squads last couple of years. Been big games, but yeah, as you see Bryan yawning, he's feeling pretty good already. And BJ Jones got a straight face.
Eddie Drew already nervous.
Man, I'll tell you what. I will tell you this. I was talking about this with someone yesterday. You guys remember when FAMU came into the SWAC, and we talked about what that would do to the FAMU and Southern rivalry?
Yep.
It did that to the Alabama State FAMU rivalry.
Oh yeah.
That game is the best renewed rivalry in the SWAC.
Yes, I agree.
Like it's just to see the way that Bama State travels to Tallahassee, the way that FAMU travels to Montgomery, and my wife is from Montgomery. She grew up basically on Alabama State's campus. She has 2 aunts that are professors at Alabama State. There's a large segment of people from Montgomery that went to FAMU.
Yeah,
FAMU. The hotel that we stayed in was all FAMU. And just because you have the Montgomery alumni base, the Birmingham alumni base for FAMU, which is huge, and then the Atlanta alumni base. So they all come together, and FAMU almost treated like, hey, this is our homecoming too. So just the way, and we joke on Alabama State, like Alabama State doesn't travel anywhere. They don't travel anywhere. They go to Tallahassee. And they come to Tallahassee in some big numbers. So just to see what that game has turned into is huge. Now I tell you what, Southern and FAMU will be back when Southern comes back. Not a minute before.
Yeah. You know what we call Alabama? You know what we call Alabama, right?
You said what now?
You said you know what we call Alabama, right?
What you call it?
Bama. It's our state. It's our state. We run that state. It's ours.
I did not realize the historical context of that matchup. If you look at ESPN, they showed some of the panning. I was like, wow, I did not expect that participation, that band to travel like that. I was not aware. I felt like an idiot. I was like, wow, this is bigger than I thought it was.
And up until yesterday, the all-time record between Alabama State and FAMU was 20-20-2.
Bryan is in that old Americanism. He's talking about that manifest destiny. He just collected the state. He named the name on. Let me finish off this. You have homecoming from FAMU where Texas Southern comes to town. I think I'll make that trip. You have FAMU at Prairie View. I'll certainly be at that matchup. So I'll see FAMU 2 weeks in a row, one on the road and one at home. You have Mississippi Valley at FAMU. Then you have the Florida Classic. obviously, and then you have the game that was moved, which is Alabama at FAMU. So fascinating to see what that looks like. Let's take our last break. We'll come back on the other side. Give you a quick updates of some big matchups that we kind of been teasing out for this weekend, which all are divisional matchups in the SWAC. We'll say what that looks like out of the MEAC and get your thoughts even on some key CIAA SIAC as we'll unveil those poll rankings on Tuesday. A little bit of shakeup there. We'll see what that looks like as the race in the SIAC is starting to shape up, and we'll see some formations of what it might be in the CIAA as well. Stick with us after our last break. We'll come back on the other side, do our last segment, and close things out for your Sunday morning before you head out and do your next framework of what you want to do on Southern, whether it's church or getting it done and getting out, maybe do some golfing, as Charles like to do. With that being said,
you know me too well.
Let's get in this last break here on the other side.
Choice Hotels is a family of brands that helps you get the most for your money so you can be any traveler you want to be. You could be a free hot breakfast hero at a comfort hotel.
Yes!
That's how you waffle!
Mr. This Script got a plot twist at a Radisson hotel.
A business big leaguer. Go for key. Even the ultimate pool float inflator. With 22 brands and the best value for your money, Choice Hotels has a stay for any you. Book direct at choicehotels.com, where travels come true. Gotta get the corners.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted CAVIL'S voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. CAVIL'S Voice, CAVIL'S Voice, CAVIL'sVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working.
Never not working. Never ever not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield. Never not working.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I would be remiss if I didn't look back before we look forward. This one is digging in the crates a little bit. We're going to go back to 2019. In 2019, the Lincoln, Missouri Tigers were in the Mid-America Intercollegiate Athletic Association. And on the date of October 19th in 2019, you had a homecoming for Lincoln, Missouri, and they defeated Northeastern State 27-9. You go all the way to 2024, and it took that amount of time before the Lincoln, Missouri Tigers were able to find another win. It happened to be homecoming, as they have moved to the Great Lakes Conference at the Division II level. But guess what? The Lincoln, Missouri Tigers have found another win after being 0 for the last couple of seasons. They defeat Lincoln, California for homecoming, 40-14. So I wanted to say a big kudos and clap. Lincoln, Missouri Tigers as they get a win. Mike was the only one that played along with me.
I know. Hey, I lived that too, so let me clap for him. I lived that.
I was trying to figure it out. I was like, Lincoln, Missouri. All right.
I lived that. Hey, I bet that was.
I wonder what took the AD so long to find that phone number for Lincoln, California. Can you come back next week?
Exactly.
Man, let's put this in perspective. 2019, that was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was out the football business back then. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a while. And even in that season, fascinating, and credit to them in all seriousness. Congratulations, Lincoln, Missouri, making homecoming fun to get a win as it's been a minute. And so wanted to acknowledge them for those accomplishments. With that being said, let's turn it and look at next week in terms of some of the key matchups. As we talked about in the SWAC, we have some key Western Division matchups. Usually you would say something like this where you get into B.J. Jones, where it becomes Separation Saturday, October, pretenders for contenders. But the way it's jungled up in the SWAC Western Division, I don't know if that's the case, but we sure know that it'll be important. So with that being said, starting with you, BJ, since I brought up your name, what are your thoughts in terms of some of these key matchup? Any one of them that you're keeping your eye on a little more than the other?
I really want to see. There's two of them. I really want to see how does Alcorn fare against Grambling State. I personally believe, and to proven otherwise, I think that Grambling State's a little bit of fool's gold. I think they were fortunate enough to get a lot of turnovers in those wins against Texas A&M and Jackson State. But when you look at those football games, they were dominated outside of the turnover. So I really want to see what Alcorn looks like. Not like Alcorn has looked like world beaters at all. I think that they have some deficiencies on that football team as well. But traditionally, Robinson Stadium has been the house of horrors for Alcorn. Yeah. Even when they're good, they don't win there. So I want to see what happens there. And then Southern going to Texas Southern. Texas Southern, as of recently, had gone a long time without beating Southern. But when you look at it, Texas Southern has gotten the best of Southern. Southern had to pull a rabbit out of the hat last year to beat Texas Southern. Texas Southern starts hot, get that big win over Prairie View to end that streak. But then yesterday, like Doc said, Texas Southern looked a little bit less than impressive on homecoming against Virginia Lynchburg. So who's the real Texas Southern? And can Southern find a way to find itself at close to the top of the standings in the SWAC West? That I'm gonna be honest with you, the SWAC West is just not good. I know we're gonna call it parity, but I just think it's all around bad football. And I think the champion is going to be whoever can pull it together the most. So I think we're going to be in for a wild ride in the SWAC, like Doc said. I think it's going to come all the way down to that last week.
Yes, that Bayou Classic. Yep.
I agree with you, BJ, in terms of just where the West is, and what's to me even frustrating is I think the defenses in the West are actually pretty good.
Yeah,
offenses that are just
anemic.
That are on another level where you can't, and when you try to be nice about it, say not good. I'm not even sure if that's being nice to really explain what we're seeing on the offensive side of the ball. Just to give a little more indication of what you're seeing with the Western Division, they set an offensive back decades in a lot of ways. Bryan, let me go to you and get your thoughts. I know you fascinated in a lot of ways with the Eastern Division, but at least take a peek over there, if you would, to the West. What are your thoughts in terms of some of these matchups? Or are you going to go with the matchup in the East? Bethune-Cookman, Alabama A&M, Mississippi Valley State, Alabama State. Does that draw your interest, or are you looking West?
It draws my interest only from the standpoint is I hate to say this. Charles, you know what? I don't want anything to ruin the October 19th matchup between Bethune and Valley. Please. So I need the Alabama schools. Nobody in the state of Alabama won yesterday. Not big level, not little level, nobody. So Alabama, redeem yourself this upcoming weekend so that on October 19th, we get the game of the year and the worst game of the year happening on the same weekend. The battle for the top of the division and the bottom fallout game. I don't know what, so if you know, you know. That's all I'm gonna say about the East.
Man, only somebody that does the bets, prop bets, would be even looking at the matchup just based on what they anticipate they want to see the following week from the top to the bottom.
Redeem yourself, Alabama. Redeem yourself. Alabama A&M at home. Alabama State at home. Redeem yourself, Bulldogs and Hornets. Redeem yourself. That's all I can say.
Now he wants to give the state back his name. Alabama, do what you do.
Exactly. Boy, I tell you, nothing like Bryan Fulford keeping Vegas in business. I love it. I mean, obviously, we look to the SWAC West next week, and the question for me, I think, BJ, you touched on it. The whole is a house of horrors for Alcorn. So that is something that I'm really looking at. But the consistency of Miles Crowley. I mean, he's already thrown 5 interceptions coming into that game. So who is Grambling if they're not turning you over? That's the question. If Alcorn protects the football, can they go in there and get the win? The consistency of Xavier Vaughn, the things of that nature. So my buzzword all year has been the consistency of the quarterback. So who do we get that night? And then obviously, Texas Southern has had recent success with Southern. Southern was able to turn the paradigm, if you will, last year. But Texas Southern, to me, is a different looking football team when KJ Cooper is healthy, and we haven't seen him since week 1. So will he be back for the Southern game? I think that's going to be huge because right now you get an opportunity to really kind of stack the box on Texas Southern, and they just have to run through you right now. But I think the number 1 quarterback at least gives him a different dynamic. So that'll be an interesting game to watch.
Yeah, especially when you saw Chase the way he finished the season, and we haven't heard anything from him. So you're right. That's fascinating when you talk about that. Big Mike?
Yeah, I'm still on Brian. I'm sorry, man. I'm like, go Alabama against the 04s. That game that sticks out of me. I want to see who gonna win, and are they gonna win? Are they gonna beat the 04s? Look at Mississippi Valley, 04 million. I don't want to say it, but I ain't gonna go Valley just yet. I'm gonna wait a little while because they got to play the rest of their schedule. But the one that really steps out to me for all the reasons that CB said was that Southern and Texas Southern game. That's pivotal. That's pivotal. What team are we gonna get? And then the one that really, my number 1 is Alcorn State and Grambling. I believe I'm not a believer. I'm not drinking the gold or the whatever they call it, fool's gold, or taking the fool's gold for Grambling. I want to see from a proficiency standpoint, which offense is Alcorn State good? They coming off a game where the quarterback threw 5 interceptions, or which Alcorn State team we gonna get? Which Grambling team are we gonna get? And who can put up an efficient offense for a full game? I think that Alcorn State Grambling to me is my number 1 game to really pay attention to. I don't know what it's gonna mean in the swing of the West. Does that mean if Alcorn State wins, they're gonna come out right at least potential tops or what? But I want to see who can play a complete game that one. That may be an ugly game, to be honest. So we'll see.
Well, Tennessee State basically has us still looking at the Western Division. Looking at the independent programs. Hampton maybe so, but they're off, as well as A&T next week as they prepare for the matchup amongst each other and for the homecoming at A&T, greatest homecoming on earth, as they like to GHO, as they like to say in those parts. It will be interesting. Can they get a victory over Hampton that nobody expects? But that's 2 weeks away. So we'll go with the Tennessee State OVC Big South OVC in terms of that matchup in week 7, which will feature Eastern Illinois, which just comes in 1-5, Tennessee State at 4-2. So before you know it, Tennessee State should be rolling and back in the mix if they can find a way to get it done against Eastern Illinois. With that being said, let's shift to the MEAC, where you have a couple of matchups. Let me see if any of these have you excited for whatever reason. You have Sacred Heart at Howard, Townsend at Norfolk State. That's Townsend playing another HBCU since they played Morgan State. Lynchburg at North Carolina Central. Delaware State at Robert Morris. Merrimack at Morgan State. Does that do anything for any of you all? With that, we'll move on.
No. No.
I was hoping somebody would step up just for a minute. And everybody's like, "No, we good."
Nah.
So let's get some love to our Division II programs. In all seriousness, I think this matchup. Now, this is before the poll rankings, but I wouldn't be surprised if either one of these or maybe both of these two teams are in the top 7 next week. Regardless, Albany State, Golden Rams at Miles, Golden Bears. I think this is intriguing in the SIAC as things are shifting up in terms of what that looks like. Can I sell any of you all on that? BJ Jones, any thoughts in terms of that matchup?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One thing that Miles has been able to do, they play some defense over there in Fairfield.
Yeah.
They play defense over there in Fairfield. I want to see what can they do offensively. The quarterback position has been a little bit of a revolving door the last couple of weeks at Miles. They've been inconsistent offensively, but one consistent has been that defense up on the head coach Sam Shade. But with Albany State, can they get it done? Remember, this is his second year for Coach Quinn Gray over there. And he got him looking good. Albany State can score some points. What does that offense look like against Miles' defense? And can Miles muster up enough offense to keep up with Albany State? Because as you saw it like yesterday, when your defense is good, but your offense can't muster any points, it puts so much pressure on them where anything can happen. So very interested to look at and see what happens with that ball game.
Brian?
Well, what's interesting is, thanks to Clark's loss, this is a matchup between the top two teams right now in the SIAC. You know, both teams unbeaten in conference play. Albany State 3-0, Miles 2-0. And what really makes it interesting is the loser sort of falls down into that muck of one-loss teams with Clark, Fort Valley, Benedict, and Tuskegee. Don't tell nobody. But yeah, even they have one loss. So it's like you lose this game, you kind of lose, you know, then you start looking at schedules and kind of say, okay, who has who remaining in the last 4 to 5 games of the conference, you know? So I think that's how big a loss Clark's loss was, because I really felt like Clark had an advantage had they not lost, because really I thought the only real quote-unquote tough team left was Miles. But now that Clark lost, they kind of lost their buffer. So it's open. It's wide. It was always wide open, but it just gets really, really interesting, I think. So I'm excited to see that game.
Let me switch, Charles, Bishop, and Mike. Let me switch to the CIAA matchup. I got for you all to discuss is Shaw Bears and Winston-Salem State Rams. Both these teams were playing really good, surprising everybody. This is a top 7 matchup currently. We'll see what that looks like on Tuesday. Does it stay a top 7 match? But regardless of that, these two teams cannot afford another loss in terms of trying to fight to be in that championship. These are two teams that are playing for a CIAA spot in the championship game that I'm not sure people thought about at the beginning of the season. So this one continues to have somebody in the race, and it gets a bit tougher for the team that loses out of this. This was previously until this year where all teams are playing, top 2 teams playing the championship. This was a big meeting in the Southern Division. Still a big meeting, but now it has even more on the line in regards to that matchup. With that being said, Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of the Shaw Bears at Winston-Salem State Rams?
Intriguing to me. If you look across the divisions, or you take the MEAC, the SWAC, CIAA. The top three teams have a couple of things in common. Number one is they seem to have some kind of balance between offense and defense. Shaw is one of those teams. If you look at the top three teams, they're scoring 30 points a game, 34, 35, whatever, through 5, whatever games, 6 games, whatever. And then their point differential between what their offense is scoring and what they're allowing the defense tends to be 10 more. Now, 10 points or more. Shaw, 30 points. They're allowing their opponents 27 points a game. So they're scoring, but they're allowing their opponents almost as many points. Whereas you take Winston-Salem, they're scoring 21, but if you look at what they're allowing their other teams is 17, so they're playing in lower scoring games. So I'm wondering, number one, will this be a higher scoring game? Because Shaw tends to put out a little bit more offense.
Shaw can score.
Yes, and I'm wondering which defense is going to step up to the plate and stop the other one. At least, and you look at, I'm talking both sides, running and passing. So,
Charles, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think Mike hit it out the park on that, because to me, this one comes down to Shaw's offense versus Winston-Salem's defense. You take a look at Winston-Salem; they're in the upper tier of the CIAA in terms of defense. But Shaw has been putting up some points, so that's the question: can they do it against Winston-Salem State? I'm gonna throw you a curveball though, Dr. Cavil, because the other one that I'm kind of paying a little bit of attention to is how does Clark bounce back off of a loss? They go to Central State. So I think that's another one that I'm going to kind of keep an eye out for next week as well.
I can see that, particularly for that long road trip after a tough loss at home, and you've gotten all this excitement. Can the players stay up and understand that they're still in the race? And that rat poison in terms of really finally nibbled off a little bit, but can they get control of the situation and understand that there's much to do in terms of the race as they go down the stretch. So I agree with you. With that, let's close it up. Great show, great breakdown on a lot of different areas, business side of things as well. We got to talk a little bit about that, the ledge, who's on the ledge, who's trying to push people off the ledge, and folks that are fine and need to go back and sit down as they put themselves pushing forward and going in the other direction, chasing the conference championship. With that being said, thank you for listening inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We had Bryan remind us that in 2 weeks we have some key matchups, and it could be on both sides of the ledger, including one of the independents, which is a homecoming. We'll see what that looks like on the MEAC, but the SWAC can be both the top of the world and the bottom of the world in the same weekend. So that's fascinating. I talked about the Thursday, Friday, Saturday matchups, and Bryan goes in a whole different direction. Boy, I tell you, it means make sure you show up tonight for a show. Bryan and AD, as Bryan will be doing this thing, closing out the weekend and getting you ready for next as you relax and close out your weekend. Again, I want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. Sunday, we'll be back at it at 9 a.m. to get you an update and even let Mike tell you about the bus or the truck as we start taking the turn to get into the championship race. The bus.
Let me remind TSU alumni that homecoming is not over until you said your goodbyes at homecoming brunch today. So that's all I got. Goodbye.
That's right. A real homecoming.
Wow. Yeah, taking dabs like that. Follow me. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab with the fellas. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyatta That's on Twitter. I say it and call it that because I can. I know it is X now, Facebook, and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles.
Of course.
Mike.
Lecture.
Bryan and BJ.
Dismiss.
Oh, man, that was pretty good.
That was good. That was coordinated, man. Good job.